Negotiations for the Terence Crawford vs. Errol Spence rematch seem to have been put on hold, and Terence has revealed why he doesn't want to rematch Spence. While Spence was eager to get this rematch made, it was clear that making 147 was a big problem for him, and quite a few pros know that. Mikey Garcia stated, "I think Crawford still wins. His skill level is that much better. I do think the weight might have been a factor. I think Spence was probably not able to hydrate well enough. He killed himself to make weight, and he probably stuck around at welterweight for a little too long. That all may have been a factor in the way he performed, but the skill level that Crawford brings to the ring is just that bit better." Spence was very honest about how he hoped that the rematch would be moved up to 154, but he didn't want to make the weight cut an excuse for his loss.
Are you willing to do this rematch back at welterweight?
It's something I got to talk to my management about, but hopefully it's at 154.
How was this particular weight cut? Was it a very difficult one, or did you feel at ease with the weight cut?
I mean, it's always difficult, but like I said, I don't make any excuses. The better man won tonight.
Eddie Hearn knows that the weight cut was difficult for Spence, but he isn't sure moving up would really help his chances. Eddie stated, "No, I don't think so. I think that was a taxing fight for Errol Spence." Without taking anything away from Terence Crawford's performance, there are starting to be a few miles on the clock for Spence, whether it's the lifestyle, retina, or car crash, whether it's tough fights, or that kind of fight last time would do some more to take some extra miles off the tank. I do think he'd be stronger at 154. He's been at 147 a long time, but I still think Terence Crawford is the big favorite in that fight. I don't think it's a fight people are clamoring for, so I think you're going to have to find something to get Spence off the pan for that rematch. Stephen A. Smith was worried what would happen if Spence decided to activate his rematch clause immediately.
A matter of fact, let me make a plea over the international digital airwaves of YouTube. Let me make a plea right now to Terence Crawford. I understand you just beat him. You beat him thoroughly. You're the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, the WBO, the WBA, the WBC, the IBF titles, but you hugged him after the fight for a reason. I am making a plea to Terence Crawford. Even if you elect to give Errol Spence Jr. a rematch, please do not do this for at least a year. Please don't do that. Y'all are cool with one another. I'm begging you, my brother. I'm begging you. Because I know you got love, and I'm begging Errol Spence Jr., as good as you are, you were just outclassed. I say that respectfully because I got mad respect for Errol Spence Jr. Please, please do not fight Errol Spence Jr.
And now that he's activated it, he's even more worried about Spence's chances and health. Stephen stated, "The reality is that Errol Spence Jr. doesn't need to be back in the ring. You saw him. You heard the slurring of the words. I know it was in the immediate aftermath of the beatdown, but my goodness, we know what we saw." Crawford's trainer Brian McIntyre has said no specific date has been discussed, but he hopes it'll happen before the end of the year. My response to that would be, how could you possibly hope that? I mean, you want to buy as much time as you possibly can for Errol Spence to fully recover looks-wise. Just the scars, it was bad, y'all. I love Errol Spence Jr., and I'm not cracking jokes. I'm not laughing. I don't think it's funny. It was just bad. He does not need to get back in the ring with Terence Crawford this year. Me personally, period. He doesn't need to get back into the ring until next summer. Bernard Hopkins really thinks that the rematch will be different, though. Bernard stated, "Some, if not over 60% of people might think that, but I think a little different. I don't think that he might win, but I think it would be different, which would be entertaining to us, looking for it not to be any different than the first fight. So exercise, which you negotiated, grant that on both sides and then move on. Matter of fact, you should already have, but you want to move on next to, in the works anyway. That's what managers, advisors, promoters, that's what they do, and hopefully some fighters will start taking that good lesson. But anyway, I think that the fight has credibility to go for the rematch based on what they negotiated." Danny Garcia actually seems to think the same way as Bernard, and he thought that the first fight was closer than most people are giving it credit for. Danny stated, "I have mixed emotions about the fight just because both of them are mentally strong. Both of them are on top of the game, basically, but going into the fight, I thought it was a 50-50 fight for that reason. Maybe it was the weight, maybe it was something else that he's not talking about. Some fighters don't like to make excuses, even though I could have made a lot of excuses in my career, but I never did. But some fighters just don't like making excuses, and maybe he just had a bad night. A lot of fighters have bad nights, and that was just the night that he happened to have a bad night, because every fighter has a bad night. Sometimes you can win on your bad nights, and sometimes you lose one-sided. So that's just how boxing is. While Terence wasn't too keen on running things back just for the same result, he seemed willing to follow through with his contract.
Because, I think Errol is a strong-minded, strong-willed individual. I feel as if, he would go back to the drawing board. He would come back stronger. He'll come back more hungrier. And he'll try to fix the things that, he needed to fix to make the fight look different in the second time than in the first time. I do believe that, but that's the only thing that I can actually sense, because I will be on the other side.
Canelo Alvarez seems to believe that the fight will end up being the same thing, and he stated, "I don't think it's time for Spence to retire. Crawford was just the best man that night. But if they fight again, it's just going to be the same thing. Crawford is a better fighter. I respect Spence and I like Spence, but Crawford has everything." Crawford's trainer, Brian McIntyre, definitely believes the outcome will be the same in a rematch, and he actually put the pressure on Spence's trainer for Spence being weight drained. Brian stated, "Is that the best version I've seen of him? I don't know. We'll see what he's going to look like in his next fight. If he does rematch Terence, the same thing is probably going to happen. I would say it is. Again, he had to weigh in the same weight as Bud. He knew about the fight months before, so if he was weight trained, that's just bad coaching on Derek James' part. We all had the right amount of time to prepare for this fight, so I'm not looking for excuses, but Errol didn't have any excuses. Everybody else did." Freddie Roach tried to warn Spence about rematching at 154, and he just thinks that Crawford will have a bigger punch. Freddie stated, "Yeah, if it's at 154 pounds, Spence is going to be getting in there with an even bigger puncher. I don't see a second fight being necessary, because the first fight clearly showed who the better fighter was. Let him get back in the gym, get back to work, and get a couple of wins under his belt. Then maybe we could see it." Jeff Mayweather definitely thinks that Terence should offer a rematch at 147 since that was such an issue in the last fight. Jeff stated, "If I'm Crawford, I'm fighting at 147 again. You've already made it clear to the public that was a problem. If that was a problem, it's going to be another problem the second time around. I think that's what he's going to say, but I would still make him fight me at the same weight." Well, it looks like that's the plan, and Terence is hoping that Spence doesn't accept the terms. Terence's sparring partner, Steven Nelson, stated, "Facts, and to all the people out there spreading false narratives, Bud is offering Errol a fight at 147. If he doesn't take it, which we're hoping he doesn't because it's a waste of time, Bud wants to do something that's never been done and move up 3 weight classes to beat Canelo." Crawford has been very honest about his desires to do something never done before, and he's been taunting Canelo Alvarez and Jermell Charlo.
So you said 68, but you mean 54, right?
No, 68.
You want to go up to 68. So who would you fight at 68? Canelo?
If he win, or Charlo, the winner.
Wow. That would be crazy.
I want to be 3-time undisputed.
So your goal was to go up and become undisputed in 3 different weight classes.
There you go.
Wow.
Something that never been done before.
Right.
I always said, man, that's a big step. That's a big step, but for a person to go up 3 weight classes from 147 to 168 and to win, and become undisputed, wow. What can they say? They can't say nothing right now, but what can they say? What would they say though? 3-time undisputed champion and the smaller fighter that went up 3 weight divisions to conquer one of the baddest mans.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos on the screen right now.